Welcome back to Up the Villa podcast. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. Get involved, share your teams on social media, and drop this video a like. Let's have a like target then of 500. So smash a like on this video. I sent Justin on a scouting mission this morning. He was on an Evertonian fan channel. So how are they feeling, Justin? Are they confident or are they a bit wary of us? What was the vibe off the episode you did with them?
It was very good, actually. I enjoyed it. Across the Park podcast, it's called. It's just gone out, I think. Well, whenever this goes out. The vibe from them is they are very worried still. They've obviously chuffed that they've had these couple of results in the last two home games, 2 wins, but I expected them to be not confident, but I expected them to think that they've got a reasonable chance against us. But what he was saying was they just think they're going to just sit back, basically soak up and try and hit us with a set play. He said their attacking output is very, very poor. Calvert-Lewin looks like he's not going to play. I said, well, who's going to play up top? And he said Morpie. He said it's been a disaster basically since they signed for them. Iwobi and McNeil, there's nothing coming from them a lot. They've got 3 holding midfielders, back 4, Deutsch, prime Deutsch, just sit back and try not to concede and nick something from a set play or a long ball or a scramble or a mistake, which we've been prone to making obviously lately. So they're not massively confident that they are a bit worried about this one. He said he's hoping to get at least 4 points out of the last 2 home games. That was Leeds last week and us this week. So his words were at the end, I'll snatch your hands off for a point right now. So I think that just shows the mentality of where they are currently. They're still not out of the woods by a long stretch, and they are pretty worried about facing Villa, even though we've had a bit of a ropey last 2 or 3 games, which shows where we are, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does, because I think if you take in the last 3 games into things, you'd be thinking we're absolutely shite, and we're on a downer. But it's far from that, in my opinion. I do believe we are a good side, and we can pose anybody problems. That the guy you were talking to was saying, that they're lacking, the ability to score goals and playing nice football. You look at the 2 goals we scored against Arsenal, absolutely playing wonderful football, really well worked goals, great finishing. So we do create a lot. We look lively, but again, it's like we spoke about in the preview. It's about us to this game and doing the right things and performing to the level that our manager wants us and expects us to perform at week in, week out. So we need to get back to that ASAP, starting on Saturday. And I think we'll pose some problems. I think there will be a big reaction. Me and Ryan spoke about it. We were saying that we don't want the reaction to just be, we turn up and we look all right. It's got to be across the board 90-minute performance showing that what we are all about. And those 90-minute performances have been in 45-minute halves and everything like that. So we do really need to have a really good game. But I expect us to be right up for this one. So let's have a look.
Yeah, just before we do that, I totally agree with what you're saying. I think our attacking output is pretty good. I think it's been getting better by the week. Our flair players are getting better by the week. The only worry for me is keeping the back door shut, but we've been our own worst enemy there, haven't we, the last few weeks. It hasn't been particularly because the opposition have been fantastic. It's because we've been a bit wasteful, haven't we, at back, and a bit, jittery, which hopefully won't happen.
No. And I think some of the centre-backs especially will be starting to feel like they need to start having some really good performances, because there's a centre-back that's getting ready to be in and around the match day squad. So both of them now have that little bit of, they've got to perform, haven't they? Because if they don't, then one of them will come out the side, and eventually Carlos will go into that side, won't he?
Yeah. He's got to basically just the back five. Their only job on Saturday for me is just not conceding. I know that's an obvious thing to say, but they've got to be so focused on not conceding. We're going to be bombarded by the sound of it. We're going to be bombarded by long balls, set plays, throw-ins, corners. They're going to throw everything into the mixer. And when I asked him who I thought their biggest threat was going to be, and he said one of the centre halves, so Cody.
Tarkowski.
Yeah. He said they're there for him, their biggest threats, which says it all for where they are at the moment. So the two centre halves have got to be massively switched on. The fullbacks, obviously, tasks, especially Moreno, if it is him, with getting forward, but he's got to make sure we don't leave the back door open. And when we do play it from the back, which we're going to do, don't make any mistakes. Please don't make any mistakes.
Well, yeah, so we'll get on to all the how we're going to beat them then right now. So normally we don't really say much about Martinez when it comes to predicting lineups, but he's going to want to put in a good performance here because the last game, I would probably say, was possibly one of the worst games he's ever had for Villa, I think.
Yeah.
So let's get back to what Martinez is good at. Let's try and be calmer on the ball. Let's use the ball better because it's okay saying Ollie Watkins is crucial to Villa because he puts the ball in the back of the net. But Martinez is now really crucial because he's the one that's starting everything off. So when we, have a goal kick or whatever, it's important now that his distribution is really good. And, you might think, well, all he's got to do is kick the ball off the floor or, pass it to a Villa player, but he's got to get it right. So he's got to make sure that his distribution is really good because 48% distribution against Arsenal just weren't cutting it. So, he's just got to get his head back into the game and perform to the best of his ability. So Martinez comes back in.
Yeah, I agree. The problem is because of the way we play now, clubs know, and I'm sure they've been watching us, that we play it from the back a lot. So they employ this high press on us, which means when Martinez receives the ball to his feet, he's invariably got a couple of players pressing, our centre halves, and that then brings Kamara into play, where he plays between the lines and tries to get it into his feet. So there is literally no room for errors there, and I'm sure he works on it in training because all goalkeepers now have to be good on the deck. I don't know. I think eliminate the really risky pass. If there's a player open and wide open, then great. Put it into his feet. Let's start building from the back. There is going to be a few occasions every game where that pass is a very, very risky pass. So for me, Martinez has got to be more aware of what he's playing into and his decision making that has cost us a couple of times when he's fed it into Kamara's feet. But then we saw it last night in the Champions League, didn't we? Alisson Becker, he could have gone either way, and he's gone straight at the onrushing forward. So keepers are under a lot of pressure these days to be able to play out with the ball. So I think he will improve. I do think he will improve, but I just hope he's on it on Saturday. Really do, because they're going to be one of the things they're going to want to do is press us and try and make us make a mistake after watching us the last few weeks make mistakes from the back. It's going to be a key point for them, I think.
Yeah. I feel like this might be a game. This is just a hunch that we see the best of us playing out from the back. And I'll tell you why I think this is the case. Because I think we can move Everton around the pitch a bit. And I think if you look at how structured Everton need to be, they're now playing with 3 central midfielders in the middle of the park. So whichever way you look at it, whether it's 1 holding, 2 that are a little bit further forward, if we have the ball, then it's a 3. Engaging wise, I think they would maybe be reluctant to full press on us because if they press us a lot, then it means that there's gaps all around the pitch. So I think we might see a good version of Villa with the ball as well. So
I think so. I'm looking at their formation and I'm looking at their stats based on the Arsenal game. I'm discounting the Leeds game because Leeds were absolutely terrible. They never had a shot on target. So I'm basing their performance, the statistical data and their formation on the Arsenal game, which is a team of Arsenal. Obviously, Arsenal were going there to win the game. They would have been very, very disappointed. So he's definitely a four at the back, three defensive midfielders, and then the three up top are just feed off whatever you can get, basically. And they only had 30% possession in that game, and they won 1-0. So that feeds into what he was telling me this morning, that they're not bothered about having the ball. They're bothered about defending very, very well, keeping a clean sheet, and praying they can just pick a goal from somewhere. They've only scored 17 goals in 23 games this season, which is the joint worst with Wolves. So they're not, they haven't got goals in them, have they? But one is always enough if you can keep the back door shut. So that's what Dyche's basically doing. He's don't concede a goal, and if we can get a goal, great. If we can't, then we'll take a point and move on.
Yeah, cool. So, Justin, who's playing left back and right back?
I think we stick with Moreno and Cash. I do. They were brought back in last week. Obviously, we conceded 4, but I'm sort of discounting the last 2 goals because they were just madness, wasn't it? I think 90 minutes basically we held Arsenal and we did pretty well going forward. So I think he sticks with them. Moreno obviously has that adding attacking flair to us. And it's no good chopping and changing these positions as well. Young's had a good run. Luca Dean was sort of given a good run. But I think it's time to now try and re-establish Cash and Moreno as our first choice fullbacks, which I think they probably are, to be honest now.
Yeah, Mings, Konsa will be the 2 centre-backs for this game as well. So, I just feel like going into this game, they will have had a stern talking to. They will have all sat down and re-established where we are and what we're trying to do. And that message would have come across really loud and clear from Unai Emery this week. So this is why I think there's going to be a big reaction from Villa in the way that we do play in this game, because I can't imagine it's going to fall on deaf ears. So it feels to me like some of them would have had a bit of a warning as well. So if this goes wrong in this game, then I would see some changes coming into the next games, and I would imagine that some of them will be sitting out on the bench for a bit if it doesn't really go well. What are your thoughts on it then?
Yeah, I think Konsa and Mings are our first choice, aren't they? And I think, well, the back five, that if you ask 100 Villa fans, I would think 90 of them would say that was our strongest back five, isn't it? So, they've just got to almost put aside what's happened over the last 3 weeks. City away is always a difficult place to go and get a clean sheet anyway. And the last two home games have been just... I mean, I called the Leicester game a one-off. That won't happen again. And then we go and do it again 2 weeks later. Different sign of circumstances, because we gifted Leicester, 3 goals, whereas I think Arsenal, did play. They did create a lot of good chances, and they've got very, very good players, haven't they? So the difference between that this is why I'm going to this game mega confident, because they're not Arsenal, they're not Man City, they're struggling for goals. They are still low on confidence by the sound of the fan base, the one I spoke to anyway. So we've got to just impose ourselves on the game. That starting 11, which more or less I think will be the same as we'll get to this week, it's more than good enough to go to Goodison and win the game, providing they're all on the game and they're all focused. And there's nothing will focus you more than coming off the back of 3 straight losses and conceding loads of goals, because the manager is going to be refocused and absolutely intent on making sure that this run doesn't continue. And he'll be telling them all exactly that. You redouble your efforts. You put twice as much effort into this week. You make sure you stick to my plan of where I want to play. This team is going to play like this. And as long as you do all them things, then I think we'll win the game.
100%. So I'm going to say McGinn. McGinn's back in, still in. Energy is going to be important in this game to match Everton's intensity, especially in the middle of the park. I think second balls are going to be important to win those. So I think McGinn needs to get back to what he's been doing, what he's been doing well at under Unai Emery. Buendia seems to play well against Everton as well. He got the winner last season, didn't he? So
Yeah.
I think Buendia's in, but again, it's going to be a bit of a physical one, should we say? Doucouré's physical, Onana, Idrissa Gana, Iwobi. So it's important that Buendia is up for a bit of a battle. You know, he's strong in this game. He helps support Moreno as well. So I think Buendia's got to, really be on it as well.
Yeah, I think the three in the middle there, Kamara, Louise, and McGinn. Basically, it's not a straight matchup because they play a what you probably class as an old-fashioned 4-3-3 or a 4-5-1. Even if McNeil in the way be sort of tucked into the either side, so it's going to be them three against Doucouré, Idrissa Gueye, and Arna. So I would back them three against Everton's three all day long. So then it just comes down to which front three he's going to create the chances and score the goals. And again, based on what I was speaking to this morning, he's got zero confidence in their front three even creating a chance, let alone taking one. So we've got to be very confident that Buendia's been in pretty good form. I'm really pleased with Coutinho. I'm chuffed to bits with how he's looked the last couple of games. I was at the City game and he looked great when he came on. He really looked sparky again. He looked like bubbly, which is what you want to see. You want to see him wanting the ball and the little tricks and flicks and stuff that weren't coming off earlier in the season. And then he sort of his head was dropping a bit, thinking, "Oh, it's just not happening. It's just not happening." They're coming off now a bit, and the goal have done him wonders last week. Buendia's little step over, fantastic, vision and sort of awareness of what's around him, and a goal. Hopefully, he's just going to go from strength to strength now, and we'll see him really, really flourish and almost, over the end of the season he had last year when he first arrived from January onwards. So yeah, I'm buzzing to see the two sort of little 10 magicians coming into the game. And
So do you think it's going to be Coutinho?
I think so, yeah, I do. I just can't make a case for. I thought that Duran had a good chance last week of starting, and he's obviously choosing to just ease him in slowly, which I think, given the benefit of hindsight from me, is the right thing to do. He's a young lad, come from America, finding his feet in a very, very competitive, tough league. So why chuck him in? And whilst I think he would be okay, I think the risk is you're going to chuck him in and he'll have a bit of a stinker, and then he has to be hauled off at some point because he's just not impacting the game. You're far better off putting the young lad on with 10, 15 to go when you're either chasing the game because you're losing and he's got nothing to lose, or you're ahead and he's confident when he bobs on the pitch because that's what he looks like, doesn't he? So I can't make a case for Bailey at all coming back in. I don't think he's done enough off the bench. He's got to try and somehow make his way back into the team, and it's obviously too soon for Traore. So yeah, I think the front three picks himself.
And then Watkins up top.
Oh, yeah.
We said how well and happy we are for him in the preview as well. So just more of the same. 5 out of 5 for me, please, Watkins. But one thing I am going to say, if I come on this podcast on Saturday and we have conceded off a corner or a set piece, I am going to be absolutely livid. Right? I will be livid because this is the one area in which Everton are going to look to hurt Aston Villa. So I want McPhee or whoever's on these corners, because it's not necessarily McPhee, because I saw talking tactics tension corners, and we doing the same corner setup as what Villarreal did. So we sort of have a couple of man markers and then a couple of zonal and one at the front post. So it's about everyone doing their roles correctly and fulfilling and organising and talking to each other. So I've said my bit on set pieces. Justin, are you
It's
going to be livid as well? Because I'm telling you.
well, yeah. I mean, set plays is such a difficult thing, isn't it, to defend against, because there's so many factors go into when the ball gets chucked into the box with people movement. The ball. Is it right on the spot where all the Everton players are expecting it to be, or has he just missed it? Has he gone short and somebody happens to run there and flick it in? There's so many things that can go wrong with a set play, but I don't mind this approach, to be honest. I mean, what do you do? Do you go full man mark and just hope everybody's switched on and goes with a man? Or do you do what he's doing? You pick up their main threats, which are going to be probably Cody, Tarkowski, and maybe Decore, because he's a big lad, isn't he? Calvert-Lewin won't be playing, so we haven't got to worry about his aerial threat. He's phenomenal in the air. And then do you just sort of zonal market from there? You put them in the sort of most. I mean, they'll have all this data to hand, so they'll know the areas where you're most likely to score a header from. So it's sort of along the 6-yard line, I would say, along the goal. You know, if you're getting a free header along there, a professional footballer should be putting it on target. So I don't mind it, because if you're covering all the main areas and you've got a couple of players on there, real big threats, you shouldn't really be conceding from a corner as long as everybody's switched on and ready to go. So I'm with you. I mean, I saw the reaction of McPhee after the game, and he was fuming, wasn't he, with the one that we conceded to Arsenal, where he went short and he's just waltzed in, basically, and buried it, a bit like the goal against Stevenage, wasn't it? Very, very similar, and that wasn't switched on. So yeah, I will be, but that's probably one of the main bits of a game you can sort of do something about. Is be ready for set play. So there is a real, after the game, if you've conceded, then somebody is to blame, because whoever, you know, if you're picking a man up and he scores, it's on your head, isn't it? Excuse me. You can't really go hiding when you concede from a set play. So yes, let's just hope they're all phenomenally switched on. But yeah, just on the Watkins thing, I'm so pleased for Ollie Watkins. Honestly, it's lovely to see him in a real purple patch. The sale of Ings, I think, has just gone in his favour. I think we said that he's been given the keys to the city, hasn't he? Really, there you go, mate. You're number one striker. You're going to play every game, and he's grabbed that with both hands and both feet, and he's flourishing, absolutely flourishing, and he should be going to Goodison on Saturday, hoping for 1 or 2, really, I would think, because he's going to get chances, so hopefully he can bury another one. So I'll be backing him to score on Saturday, I think.
Definitely. Cool. Right, so we'll end it there then. Cheers, everybody, for watching. We'll be back for our press conference reaction after Unai Emery's presser on Friday. So cheers for watching. Up the Villa.
Up the Villa.